Sarah worked double shifts at Metro General Hospital to make ends meet. Her small apartment rent kept rising, and her mother's medical bills were piling up. One night, after a grueling 12-hour shift, she heard soft crying from room 402. An elderly patient was trembling, alone. Sarah knew staying meant missing the last bus home. But she couldn't leave someone alone and scared. She sat by the bedside and stayed for 3 more hours without pay. What Sarah didn't know was that this simple act of kindness would change everything. The true identity would soon shock the entire hospital staff and transform Sarah's life forever. Hi everyone! Welcome to Mystic Tales. Today, I'm excited to share a new story with you. Sarah rushed through the busy hospital corridors of Metro General. Her feet ached after 11 hours into her shift. The clock showed 8 p.m., and she had 1 more hour before heading home. "Sarah, can you help me with Mr. Roberts in 405? Asked Nancy, another nurse. "My shift ended 10 minutes ago, and my kids are waiting." "Of course," Sarah said with a tired smile. She didn't mention she was exhausted too. Being kind was just her nature. The small apartment Sarah called home barely had furniture. She could only afford the basics. Her mother's medical bills took most of her salary, leaving little for herself. "I need to pick up extra shifts next week," Sarah thought, checking her nearly empty wallet. The rent was due soon, and her account balance was getting lower each month. At 9 p.m., Sarah gathered her things from the locker room. Her bus would leave in 20 minutes. Missing it meant an expensive taxi ride she couldn't afford. "Just a quick round to check on my patients," she whispered to herself. Room 402 was her last stop. The sight inside room 402 made her pause. An elderly woman sat in her bed, shoulders shaking. Soft sobs filled the quiet room. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked gently. The woman looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared," the woman's voice trembled. "The doctors said they need to do surgery tomorrow. I don't have anyone here with me." Sarah glanced at her watch. The bus would leave soon. But something in the woman's eyes touched her heart. "Would you like me to stay with you for a while?" Sarah offered, already putting her bag down. "You would do that?" the woman asked, surprise mixing with relief in her voice. "Of course. I'm Sarah, and I'll be right here with you," Sarah said, pulling a chair next to the bed. The woman reached for Sarah's hand. "I'm Rose," she said softly. Sarah missed her bus that night. She spent 3 extra hours sitting with Rose, sharing stories and calming her fears. They talked about Rose's garden back home, and Sarah's dream of becoming a head nurse someday. "You remind me of someone very special," Rose said mysteriously, watching Sarah adjust her pillows. When Rose finally fell asleep, it was well past midnight. Sarah used her last few dollars for a taxi home. "Thank you, dear," Rose had whispered before drifting off. "Kindness like yours is rare these days." Sarah walked home in the dark, her feet hurting and her wallet empty. But her heart felt full. She had no idea that this night would change everything. The next morning, strange whispers filled the hospital hallways. Something was different about room 402. Sarah noticed unusual activity around Rose's room, but her busy schedule kept her moving. The morning shift buzzed with unusual energy. Several well-dressed people walked through the hospital corridors, heading toward room 402. "Sarah, did you hear about the patient you stayed with last night?" Maria, the receptionist, asked. "Security teams are everywhere. Something big is happening." Sarah focused on her morning duties, checking vital signs and giving medications. Her mind drifted to Rose, hoping she felt less scared about her surgery. A man in an expensive suit approached the nurse's station. "I'm looking for a nurse named Sarah," he said. "She was here last night with Mrs. Rose Thompson." Sarah stepped forward. "That's me. Is Rose okay?" "Please come with me," he said politely. "Mrs. Thompson would like to speak with you." The walk to room 402 felt different. 2 security guards stood outside. Inside, Rose sat up in bed, looking more composed than last night. "Sarah, my dear," Rose smiled warmly, "I need to tell you something important." Sarah noticed the room had changed. Fresh flowers filled every corner. A laptop sat on a portable table near the bed. "I wasn't completely honest about who I am," Rose began. "The Thompson Foundation owns several hospitals across the country. I wanted to see how staff treat patients when they don't know who they are." Sarah's eyes widened. The Thompson Foundation was famous for its medical research and charity work. "Last night you stayed with me not knowing who I was," Rose continued. "You missed your bus and spent your own money getting home, all to comfort someone you thought was just a scared old lady." "Everyone deserves kindness," Sarah said softly. "It doesn't matter who they are." Rose motioned to the man in the suit. "This is my lawyer, Mr. Parker. We spent the morning preparing something special." Mr. Parker handed Sarah an envelope. "Mrs. Thompson was deeply moved by your compassion. She's offering you a position as head nurse at the new Thompson Medical Center." "The salary is 3 times what you currently make," Rose added. "And there's more. I'm creating a fund to cover your mother's medical expenses." Sarah's hands trembled. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Rose smiled. "The world needs more hearts like yours in healthcare. I want to make sure you can keep helping others without worrying about bus schedules or empty wallets." A tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. Her simple act of kindness had turned into something she never imagined. The hospital staff gathered outside, curious about the commotion in room 402. News traveled fast about the mysterious patient who turned out to be Rose Thompson. Sarah sat in Rose's room, trying to process everything. The envelope in her hands held more than just a job offer. It was a complete life change. "Your mother will receive treatment at our best facility," Rose said. "I called them this morning. They're expecting her next week." Sarah wiped her eyes. "My mother has been sick for 3 years. I never thought—" "You gave me comfort when I needed it most." Rose touched Sarah's hand. "Now let me help you." The hospital director walked in, looking nervous. "Mrs. Thompson, I had no idea you were here as a patient." "It was the point," Rose said firmly. "I wanted to see real care in action. Sarah showed me what true nursing means." Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from her landlord about late rent. Rose noticed her worried look. "Is something wrong?" Rose asked. "Just my landlord. The rent is overdue again," Sarah admitted. Rose turned to Mr. Parker. "Add housing assistance to the package. Find her a nice apartment near the new medical center." "You don't have to do that," Sarah said. "I want to," Rose smiled. "Your kindness wasn't for show. You didn't know who I was. You just saw someone who needed help." Other nurses peeked into the room. They couldn't believe quiet, hard-working Sarah had impressed one of the richest people in healthcare. "When can you start your new position?" Mr. Parker asked. "She starts after my surgery," Rose said. "I want her to oversee my care team." Sarah looked surprised. "But I'm not qualified for that level yet." "You have something better than qualifications," Rose said. "You have genuine care for patients. The rest can be learned." Mr. Parker opened his laptop. "Let's go through the details of your contract. Mrs. Thompson was very specific about the terms." As they discussed the position, Sarah learned about her new role. She would help shape patient care policies. Her ideas about compassionate nursing would be implemented across the hospital. "A more thing," Rose added. I'm starting a scholarship program for nurses. Sarah will help select candidates who show the same dedication to patient care. The morning turned to afternoon. Sarah's simple night shift had turned into a day that would change everything. 2 days later, Sarah stood beside Rose's bed after her successful surgery, the room filled with morning sunlight. The other nurses say you haven't taken a break, Rose said. You need to rest too. I wanted to make sure you were okay, Sarah replied. Just like that night. A knock on the door interrupted them. Sarah's mother wheeled herself in, smiling brightly. The doctors at Thompson Medical Center are amazing, her mother said. They started my new treatment yesterday. Sarah hugged her mother tight. For years, they had struggled to find good care. Now everything was different. I moved your things to the new apartment, Mr. Parker said, walking in. The furniture will arrive tomorrow. Sarah thought about her old empty apartment. The nights she went to bed hungry, to save money for her mother's medicine. The nursing scholarship program launches next month, Rose said. 5 students will get full funding for medical school. We've received hundreds of applications, Mr. Parker added. Everyone wants to learn from Sarah's approach to patient care. Other hospital staff stopped by throughout the day. They saw Sarah differently now, not just as the quiet nurse who worked extra hours, but as someone whose kindness earned her a life-changing opportunity. You know what makes me happy? Rose asked Sarah. Seeing you worry less about money and focus more on what you do best, caring for others. Sarah checked Rose's vital signs, still doing her nursing duties despite her new position. Old habits, Sarah smiled. I'll always be a nurse first. That's exactly why I chose you, Rose said. Success hasn't changed your heart. The afternoon sun cast warm shadows in the room. Sarah remembered that night, sitting in darkness, holding a scared patient's hand. Thank you for changing my life, Sarah said softly. No, Rose replied. Thank you for showing me that real care still exists in healthcare. 1 month later, Sarah walked through the halls of Thompson Medical Center in her new uniform. Her office nameplate read, Head of Patient Care Services. The new nursing students are here, her assistant said. They're excited to meet you. Sarah entered the conference room. 20 young faces looked up at her, eager to learn. Let me tell you a story, Sarah began, about a night when I chose to stay with a scared patient instead of catching my bus. The students listened closely as Sarah shared her experience. Some took notes, others nodded understanding. Money doesn't make you a good nurse, Sarah told them. Caring does. Never be too busy to hold someone's hand. Rose visited the hospital regularly now. She and Sarah had lunch together every Wednesday. Your mother's doctors say she's responding well to treatment, Rose said during their lunch. The new medicine is working. Sarah smiled. Her mother could walk short distances now. The wheelchair was used less each day. The scholarship program is changing lives, Sarah said. Just like you changed mine. You changed your own life, Rose corrected. Your kindness opened the door. Sarah's new apartment felt like home now. Pictures of her mother's recovery journey hung on the walls. Her fridge was full. Her bills were paid. Remember when you said I reminded you of someone special? Sarah asked Rose. My daughter, Rose said softly. She was a nurse too. We lost her 5 years ago. She had your same gentle spirit. Sarah reached for Rose's hand, just like that night in room 402. Now I have another daughter, Rose smiled, one who shows me every day that kindness still exists. The hospital grew quieter as evening approached. Sarah walked the halls, checking on patients. Some things hadn't changed. She still stayed late sometimes. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because somewhere, in a quiet room, someone might need a gentle hand to hold. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.